Hi everyone, this is Hector Joshua Galindo, and I'm going to be talking to you today about tracking student progress. I want you to complete a KWL chart as you are watching the video. On the KWL chart, you will have three columns. The first column focusing on what you know already about student tracking. The second column will focus on what you want to know. And then the third column is focusing on what you learn from the video that you're about to watch. Your completed KWL chart will be a critical point as we begin to facilitate our discussion on student tracking during ProSat this Saturday. Everyone in one form or another has heard about tracking student progress, whether we track on a daily basis through exit slips or formative assessments, or whether we do it every 6 weeks through our 6 weeks exams. All of us have heard about tracking student progress. Now, the importance behind tracking student progress is that it allows both the teacher and the student to examine increase in knowledge towards their learning goal. Tracking student progress also allows the teacher to identify the next steps that will be taken either on an individual student level or on a class-based level. So as I'm tracking student progress, I look at how the entire grade level did as a whole, class to class, and then on an individual student level. Now, based on how the passing percentages are for each of those, will determine whether I'm going to do a particular TEK as a review, as a reteach, or just as a spiral in through the problem of the day. Now, this is a particular question that I have wrestled with over the years, whether it be from my dean of instruction to faculty and administrators, whether it be other teachers within my grade level or within my department. One of the biggest questions or one of the biggest things that I see is when they talk about why we should be tracking student progress. Now, when I talk to new teachers about tracking student progress, many of them can sometimes see that tracking is something that is separate. We have a wall tracker. I give them mastery quizzes based on individual TEKs. The student either mastered, did not master, they go to the wall tracker, they shade it in, boom, it's ready to go. But the main idea that I want you to get out of why we should track student progress is that a tracker is just not a piece of paper that you have on a wall or an Excel sheet or an individualized student tracker that students have in a folder. Tracking student progress allows you, the teacher, to be able to make day-to-day, week-to-week, unit-to-unit decisions based on how the grade level is moving or how a particular class is learning based on this particular goal that you have set for them. I myself have struggled with tracking student progress from my first year even into now into my fourth year of teaching. Each year I kind of tweak my tracker and I learn to better assess my students and better use the tracking system that I have to better prepare my students for their end of course exam. As I really began to look at what I could do with the tracker, it wasn't just that my tracker was a piece of paper or extra work that I had to do. Yes, it does take work to track your students, but the benefit of tracking your students is multitudes. When I began to really track my students from TEK to TEK, from formative assessment to unit tests to 6 weeks exams, I could really isolate pockets of students that needed my individualized help on particular TEKs. As I began to create my trackers then led to how I would intervene with particular students. It's what I use to now create my individualized tutoring schedule per week. It is how I create new activities or labs or creative assignments that will help bridge or connect particular TEKs within a unit, as opposed to wanting to isolate each TEK and then just give them a mastery quiz for the TEK. What I saw initially was that I was creating mastery quizzes per TEK, but teaching each TEK individually in isolation, as opposed to teaching the entire category or thematic unit and teaching it in a way in which my students were able to see how these TEKs blended together and led to one final message. Once people understand what is student tracking and why we should track student progress, the big hurdle that comes next is how do we begin to track student progress? You can begin to track student progress both formally or informally. Summative assessments would be like your CBA exams, your 6 weeks exams, benchmarks. Chapter quizzes would be like unit exams as well. Rubrics, if you're going to be doing some type of lab report or writing assignment or project. Informally would be a thumbs up, thumbs down, response cards, or lifting up particular colors or answer choices when you do like a quick check for understanding. A think, pair, share as you begin to walk around and hear how the students are explaining particular answers. Either entrance tickets or exit slips, or student response systems if you have like a student clicker system or polling system. I would personally say that in order for me to track student progress, I probably do a combination of both formal and informal checks for understanding. Between the times in which my students are getting a actual formative assessment or summative assessment, I do informal checks for understanding, whether it's cold calling or me going from group to group or having some type of response system or polling system that my students participate. I am constantly getting new data and glances at their progress so then I can quickly move my students in a particular direction if any misconceptions come up, or if I ask a particular student and they're unable to explain something to me, then what is it that is holding them back? And if one student is struggling, more than likely there are more students within that same classroom or within the grade level that are also struggling. And it's really a combination of this formal and informal checks for understanding that allows you to modify your curriculum in a way that will maximize student learning. What will your administrator be looking for is always a big question that most teachers have, especially new teachers in profession. Whether you're in charter schools like IDEA, in which they use the GET module, or you currently work at a traditional public school in which they use the PDAS system. In both of those systems, you both have an administrator that is coming into your room to observe how you are teaching and what the students are gaining from your teaching. And especially moving into the new semester, most schools will begin to start benchmarking their students with full release state exams so that they can see their current progress. Most administrators, after the benchmark, will begin to ask you to create an action plan that targets individual students as well as targeting individual TEKs that were subpar based off of your benchmark results. Now, as administrators begin to look for these things, this is where your tracker and tracking student progress is key. As you begin to create the action plan that most of your administrators will want after benchmarking, the tracker and where your students are is what's going to guide you as to what you should be pinpointing over the next few weeks, especially as we move deeper into testing season and into end of course exams in May. As we come to a close in our video, I just wanted to leave you with different ideas for how tracking student progress could occur. You can look down the list at the various ones. We will talk more on Professional Saturday during our session, with you having very structured work time so that everybody is leaving with some type of tracker in place both for them and how they will use the student tracker to then move their students forward. I look forward to working with all of y'all, and I'll see y'all on Saturday.